Hello there, and welcome to a very special edition of Television with MacLean. I know what you're thinking. This is supposed to be a movie show. Game of Thrones is television, and it says television, but don't worry for the movie fans, which I know is what my audience is. I'll still talk a lot about movies today on this show. It's just me today, so I'm going to do probably 20 minutes on movie news, because there's a lot of movie news this week. And then I'll get into the Game of Thrones discussion. So if you don't care about that, you don't want to be spoiled, you don't watch Game of Thrones, I still have a lot of great content for you for the next 20 minutes about movies. So, starting off today, I just want to talk about some movies that I saw this weekend. The first one I saw, Midnight Special. I thought it was a really great movie. If you haven't heard of it, don't know what it's about, it stars Michael Shannon, Joel Edgerton, Kirsten Dunst, and Adam Driver, and a boy's name I don't remember. Young boy. And basically, the premise of the movie is that this boy has some special powers, and Michael Shannon and Joel Edgerton are on the run with the boy because the government is trying to take the boy away from them because of his powers. And I thought it was a great sci-fi movie, good throwback to like some old 80s sci-fi movies. Kind of reminded me of Super 8, which J.J. Abrams did, sort of as an homage to those old sci-fi movies as well. I really loved it, and it's up there as one of my favorite movies of the year now. This isn't a review, it's just me sharing thoughts. But if I did give it a score, it would be around 8.5 out of 10. And it's probably not going to be out around here very long. It actually came out in limited release back in March, but it just came out here in Ohio, at least in this area of Ohio, this past weekend. But I just saw that it still is available this weekend. So if you're watching this, I highly recommend that you go see Midnight Special this weekend. It's only at the AMC Westchester 18, so definitely go see that if you like sci-fi, and it's really a great story. All the performances are incredible, especially Joel Edgerton. He's one of my favorite actors working right now, and I think it's a really good movie. The other movie I saw this weekend, a much bigger movie that did great at the box office, The Jungle Book. I thought that the visuals were incredible. It looked real. Like, I know that it's completely CGI, the landscape and animals, but it all looked very real, and I was very impressed with that. It makes me question, like, or just wonder, like, how far they're going to go with all this CGI, because that was just incredible. I think maybe they'll, like, eventually get to where they could have someone that looks like a real person that's completely CGI, but looks real like that after having seen this. The technological advancements were incredible. The cast was perfect. Bill Murray as Baloo was great. Idris Elba as Shere Khan. Christopher Walken as King Louie. I think the King Louie scene was like probably my favorite in the movie. It was a lot of fun. This kid, Neil Setti, I think, he did a great job in the role of Mowgli, and I think it's a movie that anyone can enjoy, and it tells a really compelling story as well. And also, now one of my favorite movies of the year. Again, not a review, but if I were giving it a review, I would give it a 9 out of 10. I think these are now my second and third favorite movies of the year. My number one is still Deadpool, but I also really enjoyed 10 Cloverfield Lane. That's about an 8, maybe 8.5. And actually, looking back at Batman v Superman, I can't change my review, but I definitely like it a lot less than then. My thoughts on it is that it's not as good as I thought it was back then. I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's probably around a 7 now. There's just a lot more issues that I have with it, thinking about it. I still love the entire third act of Batman v Superman. But yeah, I'm going off track. And then the other movie I gave a review of was Hail Caesar. I would actually give that a negative review now if I reviewed it again. So if we're because I was kind of mad that I even saw that movie. It was a waste of my time. Looking at like all the movies I've seen this year so far, if you wanna wonder where my top 10 might be when I do that at the end of the year, it would go Hail Caesar, then 13 Hours, the Michael Bay movie, then Batman v Superman, and then those four I just mentioned, 10 Cloverfield Lane, and Midnight Special, Jungle Book, and yeah, Deadpool. So those four are the ones that I really enjoyed. They'll probably be on the list. Now that might change by then. I hope the internet doesn't get mad at me. Oh, you said this. I don't know. My operation's probably too small to be recognized by the internet, though. Sort of like Lando's operation was too small to be noticed by the mining guilds. Anyways, moving on to the news. There's a lot because it's been a long time since we did a show. So starting off, it feels like it's been forever. But the Doctor Strange trailer dropped, and that was interesting. This seems very different from anything else we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. I don't know that I really liked the trailer. I think Benedict Cumberbatch will be great. I love him in really anything he does, especially Sherlock. I think he's great on that show. And, Watson also now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not just realizing that he was in Civil War, which I'm very excited for. But this movie looks kind of weird. Got that weird push thing where Tilda Swinton's character like pushed him and he went into what I've heard is called the astral plane. I don't know too much about Doctor Strange. Marvel Cinematic Universe, they've been hitting it out of the park with all their movies. The only one that I wasn't a big fan of was Iron Man 3, but it's still an okay movie, so I think Doctor Strange will be good. The trailer didn't really excite me at all. They did kind of copy that shot from Inception, which is kind of weird that they just kind of took that from it. But like I said, I think Benedict Cumberbatch will be great. It looks like it might be one of the darkest Marvel movies we've seen so far. So, again, it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Doctor Strange comes out on November 4th, 2016. Next piece of news, Ben Affleck is confirmed as the director, writer, and star of the Untitled Batman movie. A few weeks ago, I mentioned that he had written a script. Now it's confirmed that they are using that script and he'll be directing the movie. This is exciting news. News that we saw coming, but which is why I won't talk about this too much because I've talked about it before. It's just great to hear that it is confirmed. I don't believe they've released the title yet or the date, but it will most likely be that October date, October 8th, I believe. That might be wrong, in 2018. So, like I said, my opinions on Batman v Superman, still positive, but a little bit lower. I think that this movie will be great. I love Batman, my favorite comic book character, and I thought that Ben Affleck was great portraying him, and he's a great director, especially with Argo. So, it'll be interesting. I am very much looking forward to this. Still got a long time from when it'll come out. DC's not cranking out as many movies as Marvel is, but that's good. I think they need to take their time because this Batman v Superman was rushed. So, villains I'd like to see, I mean, they'll probably put in Leto as the Joker, which, I mean, I know that the Joker, he's probably the greatest comic book villain of all time, but we've seen him so many times on screen. I'd like to see maybe another Scarecrow or another Two-Face, maybe another Mr. Freeze, because not that punny Schwarzenegger, that was not good at all. Man-Bat, I don't know if that would work in a movie, in a live-action movie, but hey, Jungle Book works, so maybe. But yeah, anyways, I'm looking forward to Ben Affleck directing Batman. No release date on that yet. The next pretty big news story, the Sony confirmed two of their titles for their upcoming movies. Spider-Man Homecoming is the name of the Spider-Man movie that will be coming out in the MCU and produced by Sony. And also the Men in Black 21 Jump Street crossover will be called MIB-23. So first I'll talk about the Spider-Man title. I don't like it. I don't know what homecoming means. Hopefully it's not like a homecoming dance. I don't really want to see high school drama with Peter Parker. I do like that it's in high school, but I want the focus to be on Spider-Man and not a homecoming dance. That sounds pretty terrible. I do know that there's an issue of the original Amazing Spider-Man comic book called Homecoming. I don't know if that had anything to do with like the dance. Hopefully not. I heard that it was like the first time the symbiote suit was introduced, which would eventually become Venom, or like turn Eddie Brock into Venom. So maybe it has something to do with that. Michael Keaton has also been like rumored to be cast in Spider-Man Homecoming. So maybe as a villain also. So maybe he'll be in there as a villain. I mean, I'm looking forward to the movie. I'm just not big on the title. Also, MIB-23 I think is a terrible title. It just doesn't sound good at all, and I'm still not on board with this idea of a crossover between Men in Black and 21 Jump Street. I think I'm one of the few people who actually liked Men in Black 3, but I don't need to see these things cross over. They're their own separate things. It doesn't really make sense to me, and the title just makes me like it even less. So, yeah, I guess I'm not pleased with either of these titles. Moving on, speaking of Channing Tatum, he's been cast in Kingsman: The Golden Circle, added to the cast that I believe has been announced is Halle Berry, I believe, and Elton John and Pedro Pascal from Game of Thrones, which we'll talk about. So Channing Tatum cast in Kingsman: The Golden Circle, coming out on June 16th, 2017. I think this is good news. Channing Tatum has been great recently in most of the things I've seen him in. Hateful Eight, he was really good, and Men in Black. I'm looking at my notes here. Men in Black, 21 Jump Street. Can't get those separated now. 21 Jump Street. He's very funny in those, and I think that the premise of this is that they're working together with the Kingsmen are working together with the Statesman, which is like the U.S. version of the Kingsmen. So maybe he'll be a part of that. I think that's what Halle Berry's character is supposed to be. I hope I'm not wrong on Halle Berry. I think that's who it is. But yeah, this is good news. Channing Tatum being added to something is usually good news, and I think he could work well in this franchise. I hope they expand on this franchise because I really enjoyed the first movie. So I am excited to see Channing Tatum added to the cast of Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Next, big news. James Cameron announced 4 Avatar sequels. We already had 3 that were coming. Now it's 4. Avatar 2 set to come out in 2018. Avatar 3 set to come out in 2020. Avatar 4 in 2022. And Avatar 5 in 2023. That is a lot, and this next addition to this news is that the films are going to be shot concurrently. So it's not even back-to-back like the film one then go to the other. They're going to be filming scenes from all 4 movies at the same time. So they might be working on a scene in Avatar 2, and then after they finish work on that scene, they'll move directly into work on a scene in Avatar 5. So that is pretty crazy. They're going to be working on these for a long time, and that's a lot of movies. I hope they're good. Avatar 1 was alright. Story-wise, not great, but visually incredible, and I'd love to go back to that world, to see that world again. So, I mean, I don't need 4 sequels. I would have been fine with 1, but I'll probably see the first one at least. If that gets me excited to see the others, then I'll see those. This just seems like a lot to do at once. James Cameron has been taking a lot of time in between his movies. I think it was like 12 years in between Titanic and Avatar, and now it's been uh, 7, no, 8 years out of 7, something like that since Avatar. So I don't know how he plans to get all this work done. I don't know if they're gonna have all the original cast back, but that, anyways, this is gonna be a lot of Avatar that we're gonna be getting if they go through with this, which I think they will. The only other movie, I think Lord of the Rings filmed concurrently. I'm not exactly sure. I think that was on the bonus feature documentary that came with my Lord of the Rings movie. I think they said that. And those turned out great, so, I mean, if this is anything like Lord of the Rings, not that it will be, but that would be pretty awesome. So, anyways, moving on. Natalie Portman has said that she will not return for Thor Ragnarok as Jane Foster. This is kind of surprising news because she had a pretty big role in the last Thor movie, especially Thor: The Dark World, where she actually like traveled to Asgard and had the ether like inside her. And then it showed at, like, in the post-credit scene, Thor like returned to see her again. So like you think everything's cool with them, but Natalie Portman wanted out, I guess. So she will not be back in Thor Ragnarok. Maybe they'll have a relationship between Thor and the Lady Sif. I don't know. Natalie Portman wasn't really good in these movies, but story-wise, that's probably going to have an impact. As far as Thor Ragnarok goes, it's one of my most anticipated Marvel movies that's coming up. Obviously, Civil War is huge right now, but I really love the first Thor. The second Thor was okay, but I love like going to Asgard and all the like not mystical, like galactic elements of the Marvel Universe. I love Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think Ragnarok will probably take place more on Asgard and in space than on Earth, if they even go to Earth at all. I don't know, but the Hulk will be in the movie. It'll be pretty cool to see him interact with Thor again, and yeah, no Natalie Portman, so it comes out November 3rd, 2017. The Warcraft trailer came out. It's the second trailer for Warcraft. This was on my most anticipated movies of the year. This trailer, the only thing new I think we really saw is some of the action. Like, we saw some of the magic action. I don't know if that's what they call it. I've never played World of Warcraft, but I thought that the magic elements looked pretty cool. And it didn't really give us a whole lot more story-wise, this trailer. But I think my opinion is pretty much the same as it was before. I'm still excited for the movie. I think it could be a game changer in video game movies. And yeah, I thought it was a pretty good, well done trailer. I gotta move on. Willem Dafoe cast in the DC Extended Universe, specifically Justice League. He's the second guy from Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, that they're taking for Justice League. They're saying he's playing a good guy. I don't really know who he's going to be playing, but he's a pretty good actor, so that's good news. I'm sorry, I'm going fast through these last ones. Actually, that's it for the news. So, on to my Game of Thrones discussion. Actually, it's just me talking, so a monologue. I want to warn everyone watching, I will discuss spoilers in this discussion, so if you have not seen Game of Thrones, if you're not all caught up, this is where you stop watching the show. Thank you for watching so far, but I don't want to ruin anything for you. I'm going to warn you again, I'm about to talk Game of Thrones spoilers for the rest of the show, so please leave now if you don't want to be spoiled. Thank you for watching so far. And if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, I highly recommend it. I think it's the best show on TV right now. Very character-driven, great story, and a lot of great action-packed episodes. So that's it. I warned you. I'm gonna get into the spoilers. If you haven't seen Game of Thrones, I recommend it. Please go watch it. Oh, I mean, you don't have to, but it's a great show. So, first, I want to talk about Season 6, starts this weekend on Sunday. Um, I'm very excited for season 6. This is actually the first season I'll be watching live because I binged through season 5 like 6 months ago or something like that. A lot of heavy stuff happened at the end of season 5, so implications that might have on season 6. Well, obviously, Jon Snow, he supposedly died at the end of season 5. I think that they'll probably bring him back by mid-season. I honestly, Jon Snow, one of my favorite characters. I love the Starks; they're very honorable, but I think that I think he needs to stay dead. I don't think he will. They're gonna bring him back. I mean, we've seen that in the trailers. It looks like Melisandre and Davos are with him. Um, I I really I love Jon Snow, but I think that the Stark story needs to end because that's sort of what Game of Thrones is. You know, we thought in season 1 that the Starks were going to be our heroes, but we saw that things didn't go well for the Starks, and there are other heroes in this world that could have a very large impact on the story of Westeros. I mean, you got Tyrion and Daenerys both over in Essos. She's got to come over at some point, so I don't know if it'll be this season. I mean, at first I was really not into the whole Daenerys story because I was like, when is she gonna get to Westeros? But now, getting into season 2, I was like, okay, she's got her own thing going in Essos, and this is pretty cool. I really liked her as the ruler of the city that I can't remember. It's like Manan, something like that. Marine, maybe that's it. But anyways, season 6, it looks like Daenerys is in some trouble there. She obviously at the end of season 5 was taken away on the dragon and then retaken by Dothraki. So we're reintroducing the Dothraki, like for the majorly again for the first time since season 1. I wonder if there will be another powerful character like Khal Drogo. He was a great character, and yeah, I am interested to see where they'll go with that. As far as the Lannister story goes, that's the one that I'm most excited to see. Cersei and Jaime are out for revenge. You know, she was shamed, and Jaime's pissed about that. You see in that trailer where it looks like he's about to kill the High Sparrow, and I think that he probably will. I'm very interested to see what goes down in King's Landing this season. I think it's going to be intense. You know, as Cersei says, I choose violence, and Tommen, not the greatest king, but I think it's more going to be between Cersei and Jaime, and then the religious council of like the High Sparrow and all that that's going on. So yeah, season 6 looks great, but I just want to talk now about why I love Game of Thrones. I said it's a very character-driven show. There's so many characters that you care about, but there's really no black and white characters. Every character is flawed, but you care about every character. Oh, okay, well maybe there's some characters that are just like pure evil, like, or just you hate them and there's no redeeming qualities. But there's no characters that are really like just all around good. Everyone has a flaw, and that really makes it very interesting. I mean, the heroes of the show, like Tyrion Lannister, I mean, he's on the wrong side of things. Like at least at the beginning, he's on the side that we root against, but we still love him as a character, and I think that really makes the show great. And I love that they're just so bold. They're willing to go for it and kill off your favorite characters, like they did with Ned Stark and Robb Stark. And I think that those choices are great, and those are George R. R. Martin's choices because they take from the books. I'm not a book reader of Game of Thrones, but I definitely want to get into them sometime because I love the show. And this season is not going to be based on the books, so they say they're going to work their way around the story of the books. I hope that means that we're not going to get a lot of side story that doesn't have any implication in future seasons. It might, I hope not. But yeah, what I mean by that is the fact that they've already covered everything that's been in the books so far, and the next book hasn't come out yet, so they can't really go off of that, and they're not going to spoil the books for those people that read them. So this is working its way around that. Yeah, I'm not too thrilled about that. I hope it's not a lot of side story. I want to talk about some of my favorite characters in Game of Thrones. Tyrion Lannister, of course. He's really, if you had to say, like, who's the main character, you could say Tyrion, although there isn't really a main character. But, I mean, I loved him from the first time he was on screen, and I think that he's a very funny character, but he's also really smart, and you really care about him. And, I mean, I just love Tyrion. One of my favorites, or my favorite season is season 4, and that was a great spotlight for Tyrion as a character. As far as him like going on trial and everything that happened in that season with Tyrion, leading up to the tragedy where he killed his father and Shay. I really enjoyed in season 2 where Tyrion was the hand of the king and he took charge and led them to victory in the Battle of Blackwater against Stannis Baratheon. That's one of my favorite episodes, Blackwater. I loved him in season 1 even, when he was just kind of that smug guy, when Catelyn kidnapped him. All the scenes in the Eyrie with him were pretty great. Yeah, that's why I love Tyrion. And another character that I love, Tyrion's brother, Jaime Lannister. I hated Jaime in the first episode when he pushed Bran out of that window. Now I thought, like, wow, that's like awesome that they're going for that and they're willing to show that. But I thought, like, this guy is despicable. But really, as the seasons go on, you learn to sympathize with Jaime Lannister. You know, he gets his hand cut off and then has the great interactions with Brienne of Tarth. And I really liked what they did. I believe it was in this last season where he was in Dorne. Yeah, it was. With Bronn. And then he finds Myrcella dies at the end there. I think that Jaime is going to be a big player in this next season, and he's a badass. I mean, when he fights Ned Stark in season 1, episode 6, I believe, maybe 5, he's a badass in that scene. That's one of the best fights that we got in season 1, probably the best, and that was Jaime's just an awesome character. Not a good guy, but a guy that I really care about and want to see where his character goes. So, on to the last character I'm going to talk about in my favorite Game of Thrones characters is Peter Baelish. This guy is a snake, call him Littlefinger. If you think about it, Peter Baelish is really responsible for everything that happens in, or all of the chaos that happens in the show. You know, he is the one who killed Jon Arryn, or had him killed, and he really caused that confrontation between Ned and Joffrey to happen in season 1, which led to the civil war between the Starks and the Lannisters. And Peter Baelish is just a very interesting character. I love all the interactions with him and Varys in season 1, and it's just interesting where we keep seeing, like, where all his motivations are, and like, we still don't really know what his endgame is, but he sort of gained some power in the Eyrie, and this guy is just going to use people constantly, and I love that. Peter Baelish is a fascinating character. I did not see it coming at all when he turned on Ned Stark. Maybe some other people did. I'm just not good at seeing those things, but I thought that was really cool. And again, not a good guy, but a guy that I'm really interested to see where his story goes. So now I want to talk about some of my favorite episodes of the show. My favorite episode is The Watchers on the Wall from Season 4, Episode 9. This was, I think, the biggest payoff in, like, action, because there's a lot of story, and then every now and then you get that big action episode, and this was the best of those, I think, for me. You know, there's also Hard Home or Blackwater, but this one was my favorite. It had a Helm's Deep vibe that I loved. Jon Snow, as I said before, one of my favorite characters, and I love this episode. It's one that if I like tell people why I love Game of Thrones, like I mean everything is great, but I say like this is an episode that like if you watch this you'll be hooked on the show. I mean the first episode you could say anyways because they're all great, but the action is incredible. I love seeing the giants and you have that confrontation with Ygritte and Jon Snow. And Ygritte's end there. And then I think it's Gren, I think that's the character's name. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. I love when he goes down under the tunnel and faces the giant to his death, but stops him from coming through. And I love The Night's Watch. I love that story, and I think this was the best episode to spotlight The Night's Watch. You even got to see some of like Alistair Thorne working to protect the Night's Watch and the realm before I believe he gets like knocked out in that scene, and that's when Jon Snow really takes charge. It's one of the most important episodes because it's before Jon Snow's named Lord Commander, and it really inspires everyone to name him Lord Commander. It's such a tragedy what happened to Jon Snow, but I do think that's just what Game of Thrones is. It's a tragedy. I want to move on and talk about some other episodes. Next episode, actually the episode immediately following The Watchers on the Wall, is The Children, is Season 4, Episode 10. It's the last time we've seen Bran Stark, but he'll be back in Season 6. What I really loved about this episode was the story with Tyrion and Jaime. You see Jaime free Tyrion, and Tyrion could just go off with Varys to Essos, but first he has to take care of some business, and I think it's a really powerful scene when he goes in to his father's room and has that confrontation with Tywin. Tywin was a great character, and even though he was a really bad guy, it was a really emotional scene when he died because it's this scene with the father and the son, and then you just think about Jaime. You know, he just let Tyrion go, and then Tyrion went off and killed their dad, and that's really it might have some implications when Jaime and Tyrion see each other again eventually. I also really enjoyed Arya and the Hound in this episode. You know, they encounter Brienne of Tarth and Gendry, maybe? No. It's Podrick. Podrick, that's it. They encounter them, and then there's an emotional scene between the Hound and Arya. It's great how these characters sort of team up, and then they grow close to each other even when they're on opposite sides. You know, we see that with Brienne of Tarth and Jaime Lannister, and then in Season 4 we see that with Arya and the Hound. And so that was a great scene with them at the end when Arya leaves the Hound before she goes off to Essos. I really like what they're doing with Arya in Essos, where she's part of the I forget what they're called, but with Jaqen Hagar. I thought it was awesome when she killed Meryn Trant towards the end of this past season. So yeah, another great episode, very emotional episode, is The Children. The last episode I want to talk about, and this is probably the last thing I'll talk about today, is Baylor. Baylor, the infamous Season 1, Episode 9, that really set the tone for what we are going to see in this show. The shocking death of Ned Stark, who we thought was going to be the hero of this show. I know Patrick Nosek wanted to be here, he couldn't, but I know he really loves this episode, and he always says how it's so unjust, that death, and the fact that Ned was just so honorable, and it didn't pay off for him, and he even says what Joffrey wants him to say, admits that he's the king, and then Joffrey, I hate him so much, has Ned Stark beheaded. Really shocking, but sort of not too, because like you saw his death coming, but then in that moment you didn't know that it was gonna come. And then I like the way that they end that episode with like the birds flying after his head gets cut off. Yeah, Baylor really set the tone for the rest of the show. Sorry that this wasn't a great Game of Thrones discussion, more just me talking. I would like to have someone else here, but I think that it was still overall a good Game of Thrones talk. So thank you for joining me today, as always. I'll be back next week, as I always am, and thank you again. You can follow me at AndrewMacLean32. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. And until next time, stay safe, for the night is dark and full of terrors.